What is up, everybody? WaitingForNextYear.com podcast. It's been a little bit since I've talked to you. Some of you might think that I just wait for the Browns to lose to talk to you, because the Browns were on kind of a winning streak of sorts, 2 games. Not a lot of podcasting. Now they've lost a game, and here I am. But let's not dwell on the negative. That's not what this episode is going to be about, even though the Browns lost to Houston. Baker Mayfield had a really bad first half. He was basically old man. I know the Texans are in the prime of their careers. They are athletic, they are fast, they are smart, but most of all, they're experienced. And Romeo Crennel and that Texans defense goaded Baker Mayfield into a lot of turnovers in that first half. And they were some good plays. A couple of the interceptions were really good. Good defensive plays, and you can't take that away from the defense. But Baker Mayfield had a rookie day. He had a rookie day. Not a rookie of the week day, which he's had 5-6 times, whatever. A rookie of the month kind of a day. But he had a rookie day. A typical rookie day. And it was bound to happen. And if you're upset that it happened against the Houston Texans, I'm just going to assume you're a little bit unreasonable, because this team was 8-3 coming in, had won 8 in a row. Now they've won 9 in a row. That team is good. Okay, the Browns can compete. They didn't on Sunday, but the Browns can compete with that team, and that I hate to tell you, but that's kind of a victory in and of itself for this team. So the Browns lose, but when you have a quarterback like Baker Mayfield that you believe in, and you have a team with talented players like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, and players that you can believe in, losses feel like learning experiences. When somebody says, I learned more from losing than I ever did from winning, and they've never won, that's just an excuse for a loser. But if you have a group of guys who learn from losing, but they occasionally win, they are actual learning experiences. I was going to say losing experiences, but that would be weird. Losing experiences can be learning experiences as long as you're not a loser. That's really the bottom line. And this Browns team with these players they're not losers. Okay. It's the first time in a long time where I've felt very good about the trajectory of the team. Now, by the time you're hearing this, the Browns might have already hired Mike McCarthy. The Packers fired Mike McCarthy yesterday, and all the rumors are that John Dorsey and of course, Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith, who came to Cleveland from the Green Bay organization, it would seem like a natural fit in a lot of ways that an experienced, accomplished coach like Mike McCarthy could step right in. And maybe that would be a pretty good solution for the Browns right now, because you've got to feel pretty good about the coordinators. And Greg Williams, he's not the next head coach of the Browns, but I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the way he's carried himself as interim coach, the way he's handled himself in front of the press, other than that one day when he said he'd been offered 37 jobs and 5 of them without having to, he didn't even have to think about it. They just guaranteed him the job. He didn't even have to interview. Whatever. That's just idiocy. But he's handled himself really, really well. Even after the game yesterday, saying all the right things about what a competitor Baker Mayfield is and how he actually will learn from these things. But so if you can keep some of that continuity together while also bringing in a stabilizing head coach like Mike McCarthy, I can't speak to it with any kind of authority, because I don't know what the roster of potential Browns head coaches looks like. I don't know if there are more exciting names that need to be interviewed first, or if it just doesn't get much better than Mike McCarthy. I don't know. you have to just kind of trust those kinds of things to John Dorsey, unless you're the kind of person who studies head coaching candidates in terms of like prospects. If you study NFL coordinators like other people do college safeties and college cornerbacks who are going to test at the combine, you can weigh in, but I can't really weigh in. So I'll just have to sit back and trust that John Dorsey knows what he's doing. But maybe that means Mike McCarthy. And maybe the Browns, maybe he'll be in huge demand, and the Browns do need to act quickly. And so maybe by the time you're listening to this, he's already been hired. I don't know. But I'm not concerned. The bottom line is I'm not concerned about the Houston game. I think it would have been great if the Browns had played a little bit better. But for a young team to put up a performance like that on the road against a team that was 8-3, how upset can I really be? How upset can any of us really be over that? It is what it is. I mean, that's how it goes. All right, so let's transition away from the Browns a little bit. I've got a story for you because I am the father of two sons, one of which is in third grade. And he likes to try and play sports. He's a little timid sometimes. And right now he's trying his hand at basketball. And it's the first time he's ever played basketball. We never signed him up for kindergarten basketball or anything like that. So here he is in the third grade. It's the third and fourth grade league, and my son Ben is now playing basketball. And first of all, can we talk about how young we start kids playing sports like basketball? I mean, this is a sport where you have to have a certain amount of strength to launch a ball up over the lip of the rim so that it can go through the net. How most kids are not, I don't know most kids, but a lot of young boys were barely able to launch the ball up into the cylinder in first and second grade. And yet I don't even know what it looked like. People were starting their kids playing basketball in kindergarten. I understand the need to keep kids busy and do things. I just think that some sports should probably be reserved for kids who are able to compete in them. It's like we don't let kids pitch in kindergarten. We start with t-ball, It's really hard to do that with basketball, though. So what are we doing? Why are we starting kids so early in stuff like basketball? So anyway, my son is now playing basketball, but it's his first time playing. He barely understands the finer points of the rules. And so I made one of these kind of dad mistakes. Like, look, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I'm not a bad father. I'm not one of those awful sideline dads. But, and even the best non-sideline dad is prone to a mistake here and there. And I had one of those days where I made a mistake in terms of yelling something to my son, which probably sounded to him like I was yelling at him. And we ended up having to talk about it after. So they're playing basketball. And in doing so, before every quarter, they make the guys line up from left to right on the court and match up so that they explicitly define, all right, this kid is going to mark that kid. This kid is going to mark that kid. They try and line them up by height. And they do that, and it's probably pretty good. So then, but my son Ben, who doesn't understand help defense, doesn't understand the other dynamics of the sport, he didn't understand that guarding your man is worthless if you don't stop the ball first. And so they were playing a game, and Ben's team was up by 5, I think. And they're trying to protect the lead. It's the fourth quarter, and Ben's on the court. And he is running. Somebody who's running a fast break, and Ben was ahead of the ball. He could have stopped the ball, but he was guarding his guy. And so as he's running down the court, he's guarding his guy. He thinks he's doing the right thing. And I start yelling, "Stop the ball! Stop the ball! Stop the ball!" And here, I think, I'm not really thinking about it. I think I'm trying to be helpful. I'm just trying to give him some instruction. And meanwhile, he doesn't know what stop the ball means. He's never been instructed on that. He thinks he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. And here I'm yelling in a way that makes him think that he's making some kind of a mistake. And I guess like in basketball 201, Ben's not even halfway through the 101 course, but in basketball 201, I was giving him helpful advice, not telling him he was doing it wrong. But so I'm saying, stop the ball. And he just kind of looks at me confused and then kind of wide-eyed, like, why are you yelling at me? I'm guarding my guy. And, so I shut up for the rest of the game. I didn't do it on purpose, but I accidentally yelled at my son in 3rd and 4th grade basketball. And so it gave us a chance to talk after the game. And I told him, hey, look, this is what I was saying. I shouldn't have yelled it at you. You don't know that part of defense yet, but let's talk about it. Let's learn about it. Which actually led us to another fight because he was so done with his dad, and he probably should have been done with his dad, that I was telling him about setting a pick, and he was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that kind of basketball player. I was like, what do you mean you don't want to be that kind of basketball player? The basketball is dribbling, passing, shooting, running, setting picks. Every basketball player in the history of the universe who plays basketball has set a pick unless they only ever played one-on-one. He dug in. He was just finished. He was out of patience. Like, sometimes you got to realize that you're hustling backwards, as Bomani Jones would say. There's no place to go. You can't go forward. And I need to learn that at certain points. But you get into the heat of a situation, even though it's just kids playing basketball. And again, I'm telling you, like 98% of the time, I'm not psycho dad, but we're all prone to mistakes. Man, I felt like a jackass after that one, but, we worked it out. We had a conversation. We talked it out, and, we're back on the same side. I assume I'm not the only one out there who's had like one of these sports dad moments, even though you coach yourself up, you tell yourself you're not going to ever do that. I think it comes down to consistency. Like, if you do that all the time, you are bad dad. If it happens once or twice a year, you're human. And it's realizing that you're a psycho, stepping back. And by the way, it's one thing to yell instruction too vociferously at your kid. It's another thing if you yell at a kid ref, that's different. You don't get to make that mistake even once a year, by the way. Just so you know. If you make that mistake once a year, you're awful. You should never do that. Kid ref is another thing. A little bit too active yelling instruction to your kid because you got swept up and excited. That was maybe like caring too much, and you still need to check yourself. You got to realize you made a mistake. But, yeah. So anyway, there's a difference, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. So give me some feedback. Let me know if you just think I'm a total psycho. But, that was my weekend. Let's finish off with the Buckeyes. College football is not fair. College football will never be 100% fair. You can talk to yourself about how the Ohio State Buckeyes didn't, quote unquote, deserve to be in the playoff. And you'd be right. They didn't deserve to be in the playoff. That hasn't really stopped them from being in the playoff before. The idea of the Big Ten champ with one loss not making the playoff feels wrong, even if there are other teams with better candidacies. So the idea that it's ever going to be fair is just wrong. It's not fair. So understand that. It truly is not fair. And we know that. We know that going in. and the playoff does need to be expanded. It doesn't work as is. 4 teams is better than it used to be, but it's not enough. But then again, these kids don't get paid. Like, nothing's fair. I get it. Nothing's fair. The problem that I have, and I didn't go to Ohio State. I'm not an alum. I love watching the Buckeyes. I feel like I'm a fan, but I know my place. So I get it amongst the people who played and went to the school and are more closely tied to it than I am. I'm not you. So I know I stay in my lane. But it just seems to me that you should be able to enjoy a season where they missed the playoff and they had one bad loss to Purdue. They squeaked by some other teams and they get to the Rose Bowl. It's like being satisfied with the Indians making the playoffs back to back to back in 3 consecutive seasons, even though they lost Game 7 of the World Series and kind of got, in the long run, just making the playoffs or having good seasons, having 1-loss seasons in college football, being Big Ten champs and going to the Rose Bowl, like, that's not bad. It's not bad. It's not the ultimate prize, but if all you're ever concerned about is the ultimate prize, I hate to say you shouldn't be a fan. You probably shouldn't be a fan of the Indians. You probably shouldn't be a fan of the Cavaliers. Lord knows you shouldn't give a damn about the Browns. There's got to be something else other than the ultimate prize. And I think that goes for college football too. And it's a weird one because you expect a team like Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson and even at times LSU and Auburn, you expect these teams to just go undefeated. They should never lose. And based on their recruiting and their coaching and all the money in their program, it's kind of reasonable to assume that they should go undefeated. But that's really hard to do. It's really hard to do to just get up 12, 13, 14 times a year and have your A game. And have your A game to the level that you're going to be able to defeat every other football program with 60, 70 plus guys who are also doing everything they can to get up to defeat the Ohio State Buckeyes. Like, the Buckeyes are the New York Yankees. Everybody gets up. It's everybody's rivalry game. Everybody wants to put that feather in their cap. And so the idea that you're going to be able to go undefeated every single season, whether you're Ohio State or Alabama, it's huge pressure. And if it's going to ruin your year that the Buckeyes go 12-1 and go to the Rose Bowl for a chance to go 13-1 or whatever, I just don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the game that you have to be perfect to get into the playoff. It's unfortunate for the game that the Big Ten champ gets passed over for Notre Dame, who somehow gets a pass from a championship game because they're Notre Dame. It's not fair. Ohio State making it over the Big Ten champ Penn State a couple years ago was unfair. That's just the way it goes. There's no 100% fair system. And I think Ohio State fans, I don't want to tell you what to do. You do whatever you want. But it's hard for me to sit back and look at a season like this and the stats that they've been able to put up and the quarterback season they were able to get, and be just a miserable bastard about it. It was kind of a fun season. It obviously didn't start off so well, and nobody likes the off the field stuff with Urban Meyer, and I don't really want to get into that. I'm not saying it's not important or that you should wash it over. That's a different topic for somebody else, and it's kind of a personal choice too. But I don't know. I think it's a pretty good season. It's hard to do that in the moment, but and anytime you don't make the playoff, I guess it feels bad. But when they did make the playoff, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago, and they got absolutely smoked in the opening round by Clemson? Like, how'd you feel about that season by the end of it? Did you feel good about that one? It's such a fickle thing being a fan. I'm not casting that on you. I'm including myself. It's just, I'm having a tough time not appreciating this Buckeye season. It was a fun season. Had its ups and downs. It wasn't always fun, but overall, I'd say it was a pretty fun season. So anyway, I guess that's all I got. Thanks so much for listening. Maybe we'll have some guests sometime in the future. Maybe I'll run down Jeff Nomina and we'll do that again. It's the holidays, man. I was traveling for Thanksgiving. I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. I actually wrote While We're Waiting last week. Maybe I can do 2 weeks in a row on that, like the Browns. I just want to try and win 2 in a row before losing a game. So, hope you're having a nice holiday season. Happy Hanukkah. 12 days of Christmas. We're in the Advent calendar season. So Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.